Hey, what's up, everyone? So I figured to kick off kind of my series on some of the ways to do editing, capture your video footage, playing games on your PC using OBS. I figured I'd kind of talk through some of the settings that I have on OBS and what I typically use. So let's just get right into it. I do use OBS, open source, free. It's really fabulous program, a lot of versatility, so good for streaming and for recording. I'll run you through some of the settings that I use for my recordings. Navigate to the settings menu. So typically I don't mess with much of these general settings. You're welcome to kind of play around with them and stuff. Look at your stats. You can hide the OBS screen if you only have one monitor. I have two monitors, so I typically use OBS on my second monitor, and I play the game on my first monitor. Mess around with the appearances, set your stream settings. I'm just going to go over my recording settings in this video. We can do stream at a different point, but so when I record, I do two separate instances of OBS, one that records my camera, and then the other one that records my game capture footage so that I have more versatility in the edit. So subsequently, I have two different folders. You always have to reset your folder path to make sure that my game capture will go to my OBS capture folder that I've created, and then my camera will go to an OBS capture webcam folder that I created, two separate paths, because otherwise OBS creates one file with the same name, and if it's trying to write two different files as one file at the same time, it corrupts the video and you can't use it. So I always go in and change one of mine to my OBS capture or my OBS capture webcam folder, which depending upon what feed I'm getting. I recorded MP4. You can record if you're worried about recording and losing your footage or something going wrong or OBS crashing and losing all your footage. You could do MKV, which periodically records pieces of your videos and then compiles it into one big file at the end. And then you can also subsequently, after you do that, go back in and click Remux Recordings. And that allows you to change those MKV files back into MP4 files if you're editing in Adobe Premiere or some other NLE that doesn't use some other editing program that doesn't use MKV or recognize MKV files. So I don't have high stakes recordings, like I'm just playing matches and having fun and can have tons of footage already. So I'm not too heartbroken if something goes wrong. So I typically just stay in the MP4 format, but feel free to do MKV if you want, or any of the other ones. But honestly, MP4 and MKV are the best. Less draw on your computer while you're also playing a game. The NVIDIA NVENC HEVC is one of the better encoders to use. This one pulls more on your CPU. H.264 is not quite as like it's an older system, more universal, but this is NVIDIA's newer version encoder that like helps with streaming and recording and making sure you're not losing as much information. So either one of these are great. You can dip into some of these if you want, but that's not what I do typically. So I record 3 separate audio tracks. We can take a look at these real quick. One is my Discord track, which I go into Discord and I set my output device to chat. I've got a GoXLR setup that my mic and my headphones and everything kind of runs through. So, and then you can route them specifically to specific outputs while you're recording. And so the way that I've set mine up is that my Discord, my chat with my friends and all different stuff like that goes to one particular output. So if people were talking to me on Discord, it would be on its own channel. So whenever I go in and I'm recording in Premiere like this, I've got my game audio on one track. I've got my Discord audio, my friends talking to me and stuff like that on another track. And then I've got me and my audio on a third track. And then that way I can go in and do all manner of adjustments. Like if I cough, I can remove coughs. If my keyboard makes noises, I can cut all that stuff out without cutting out game audio or without cutting out my friends making a joke or whatever. And a lot of times I love the versatility of being able to edit kind of in a bunch of different ways and be real efficient with the way that I make my videos. And so sometimes I'll take snippets of conversation and then put them over more interesting stuff that's happening. That way my video is shorter, it's more interesting, it keeps people engaged. And so little techniques that I like to use. But this versatility, having these 3 separate tracks, allows me to be able to manipulate that stuff a lot easier. Same thing with like, you're able to go in and adjust like audio levels of each particular thing, or like in this Post Malone video that I put out a while back, like I had the ability to play some effects on my friends talking while I was like jamming out to the piano music in the video. And so it was fun to like kind of manipulate, make their audio sound hollow without making the game audio like sound any different, or me talking or making noises or whatever sound any different either. So being a professional editor and having done this for 15 plus years, I like the versatility on this back end so that I can do that. If that's not something you're worried about, or you just care about just capturing your game or whatever, go for it. You don't know how to do a lot of this editing stuff on the back end, go for it, because this can get very involved. So when setting up your audio, then you go into the settings, you go up to the audio tab here, and you set your desktop audio. I set that to game from my Go XLR. So that's primarily just my game or my desktop audio. Desktop audio 2 is my chat. So that's all my Discord stuff. And then my mic is chat mic. And so you can see the levels moving on my mic right now while I talk. No game audio, no Discord chat right now, because no audio is coming across from there. That's essentially how I set those up. And then whenever it comes to audio recording, I go 160 on each of these bit rates. And, you know, you can name them right here. Track 1, game audio, track 2, Discord, track 3, chat mic. And then make sure that however many tracks that you set up, 1, 2, and 3, all 3 of my tracks are recording to my video file. If you don't have a Go XLR, but still want to be able to separate some of your audio, a really cool trick that I used for a long time before I had the Go XLR was I went to this website that's right here on screen called VB Audio Software. And it's like an open source software that creates virtual audio lines, inputs and outputs on your computer. So it's very involved and kind of intense, but you're essentially creating a mixer in your PC, and where Windows, or I think Mac, right? Yeah, Windows and Mac recognize this to be able to separate audio that way. So it's just donation based, like, so it doesn't cost anything. I mean, you kick the creator some money, but it allows you to separate. What I did was this one right here, VB Audio Additional Virtual Cables. You set these up, and then you go through all the Windows settings, set them up as defaults. And then that way you can go into Discord and say, I want my VB out to be cable B output. And then you'll go into your OBS, create cable B output as your Discord audio, and then you'll be able to separate it from your recording. Really great software. That's awesome. Used it for quite a long time. So back to the video recording. I don't rescale my output right here. I do rescale it right here. So I used to game primarily on this 1440p monitor, a ROG PG279Q 1440p 144 hertz monitor that was great, has been wonderful, but just recently bought a 4K monitor. It's HDR, new Alienware monitor, and 240 hertz, and I love it. It's incredible. I play kind of depending upon the game in 4K or in 1440p. If I'm playing in 4K, I set my base canvas resolution to 4K here, and then my output scaling to 1440p. Depending upon what monitor you have, record in whatever resolution that your monitor is, right? But if you have 1440p and your PC can handle it, I would suggest recording in 1440p. If you're outputting to YouTube or other like video hosting websites, YouTube typically allows more information in higher resolution videos. So if you just search like YouTube bitrate, Google has this whole spreadsheet up so that you can see it, but you can see the recommended settings for different types of videos. So this monitor is HDR. I don't typically use it in HDR because it makes ginormous files. And so I only do it if I want to do a specific thing in a specific game that also supports HDR. But so I'm always doing standard definition. And then if you record at 2K at 1440p, then, and I'm recording 60 frames a second, it says to set your bitrate to 24. So you're getting more information as opposed to if you're doing it at 1080p. YouTube will compress it down to about 12 megabits per second to be on their website. So it's a lot less information in that video file. And you get double the information in a 2K, and then 4K, obviously, they suggest if you're going to record 60 frames per second, 60 megabits per second, or 53 to 68. If bitrate is new to you, bitrate is quality level in the video files. If you have a low bitrate, your video files can look super pixelated, look very mushy. It's basically the computing power that dictates how much information is in each particular pixel or each particular bit in the video. And so if you have low bit rates, you start to see colors that are similar but are different, but are similar in your video will get mushed into one color because that's the only way that the video encoder can process what it's trying to record. If you have high bit rates, then you can record more colors, more definition, more information in that video recording. So typically higher bit rate is better, but it creates bigger file sizes. It creates more tax on your computer, on your CPU or on your GPU. And if you're playing a game at the same time, that can be a lot for your computer to handle. So trying to find that nice balance, which takes us down into our encoder settings. So I set mine at a constant bit rate, which means you're telling OBS to record at a certain level of bit rate constantly. You can play around with these quite a bit. Constant QP, variable bit rate, like variable bit rate you set a window and it allows OBS to like dip in and out of it. And it allows a little bit more, like if your computer's getting taxed, it allows a little bit more variety in the way that the video is being recorded so that your computer isn't as bogged down. Lossless, if you're wanting just the best quality videos ever, lossless is it. That's no compression whatsoever in your videos, but it is giant file sizes and will really be taxing on your computer. So constant bitrate is a pretty good way to go. I set mine to 26,000 kilobits per second. So in other words, 26 megabits per second. If you go back to that YouTube recommended upload, you'll see that at 1440p, 24 megabits per second is what they recommend. So I'm a little bit over that. My video files have a little bit more information in them so that as I edit with them, I can adjust color settings. I can do a couple of things like that. And then whenever I export them down to YouTube settings, I'm able to just have a little bit more control, a little bit more manipulation is nice. So I like that stuff a lot. I don't typically mess with a lot of this stuff. I went with the P5 slow, good quality because it's recommended. There's a lot of videos out there that will go into super detail about every single one of these settings. And if you're interested, go check them out. I'm just trying to do this fairly quickly for you guys. But I do slow, good quality, tuning, high quality. Multipass mode is 2 passes. That just means it's recording roughly 2 times over to make sure you're getting the best quality. A little more taxing. And then the profile main here. These are settings I'm playing around with now because they're relatively new. The look ahead thing basically is like trying to figure out future frames at the cost of your GPU. And so it allows you to hopefully, potentially, take less taxation on your computer by predicting what frames. A lot of the DLSS stuff is very similar. So this is kind of what's being played around with now. So you can set all kinds of hotkeys for all sorts of stuff. The only one I really have is F6 to start and stop recording. And then out here, the only thing that I really mess around with, because this new monitor is HDR, if I wanted to go HDR, you're supposed to switch this to a P216 16-bit 422. So that's more color information, basically. And then change your Rec 709 to Rec 2100 HLG. You can deep dive on all this stuff on the internet if you're interested. HDR is fabulous for HDR content, but the only way that you should consume HDR content is with an HDR monitor. That if you turn on HDR on an HDR monitor and you're not consuming HDR content, everything will look super washed out and desaturated and won't look as good. So browsing websites, like the internet is not HDR compliant unless you're watching like an HDR video. And so specific games, it's great to turn on and it's really fun to like play Wukong or Cyberpunk or whatever in HDR. The problem is HDR video file sizes are also huge because there's tons and tons of color information in there that you can manipulate in post if you want to, but it's not easy, and it creates giant file sizes. So for what I'm creating right now, I don't typically do a lot of HDR content unless I'm doing something very, very specific. So that is typically the way that I set everything up. We have all of our different sources. You'll come in here and you'll create different sources based off of what you're wanting to record. My Razer Kaio is my camera, which I'm recording on my second. It will wave. Which is something that I'm recording over there. And so I don't have it up over here. My display capture, we'll do this wonderful effect right now, is set to record to my 4K monitor here. You can change your displays between these two particular things. Set it to my 4K monitor and it will record whatever's on this screen. There are some games out there, looking at you, Delta Force, that doesn't work well with OBS, right? So if you have set this guy right here to your game capture, you create a game capture source and you click capture any full screen application, it won't recognize some games. I remember when Destiny first came out, it wouldn't recognize Destiny either. Same thing with Delta Force and a handful of other games out there. It'll just be a black screen like this, which is incredibly annoying. So I've set up another display capture for games like that. Or if I'm doing meetings or if I'm recording editing content or doing any particular thing, I turn off my game capture, turn on my display capture, and everything's set up to just record this screen. And then I also have that camera set up, and then I have my second display, which is this guy over here. And you can see my second monitor over there has just my system information, so I could read it out because I don't typically know that off the top of my head. And then my two instances of OBS recording at the same time. So one thing I'll say to pay attention to, whenever I typically open OBS like this and have it up, I have this one up, it'll recognize my Razer Kaio first. So I let this one, the very first instance, be my Razer Kaio recording. And once I have that set, then I open OBS again. It asks this little warning, right? Hey, you're gonna launch another version of OBS. Are you sure you wanna do that? Once I have both instances of OBS opened, the one that is my Razer Kaio, I do this, go into my settings, go to output, go to recording, and then make sure I set my browse recording path to that folder where I record my camera footage. that way I'm creating, if you'll look over here. Okay, so it would look like this right here. Only after this point right here is it okay to start recording. Because then you've got OBS, your webcam recording to one folder and your other recording to your other folder. And then that way you can create 2 separate files at the same time, be able to bring them into Premiere like this. And you'll see my cute little face. You can see here, it gives me the opportunity to set my my webcam at any different resolution that I want, kind of manipulate it, like bring it up or bring it down, right? Without losing a lot of resolution. Also come in and take it out, or take my camera out, or take my game footage out, do whatever. Instead of, you know, like if there were information here that I wanted to show my audience, I could, but that's up to you. So in that way, it's great to record these separate instances because it gives you a lot more control. Okay, little long-winded. Hope that answers a lot of questions. If you have more, feel free to write them down in the comments, or just let me know. Join the Discord, be a part of the conversation. We can work together on different things, trying different things out. I'd love to hear different techniques that you guys use for recording or streaming. If I'm missing something, this is always a learning process, and I enjoy just that, learning. So hope this helped. And yeah, I'll see you guys in the next one.